Tonight, shutdown, showdown.
I will certainly be voting no.
The Senate takes up a House-passed bill that combines lifting the debt ceiling with short-term government spending.
Plus, infrastructure roadblock.
We have to get to that reconciliation bill first.
Progressive Democrats insist on tacking another $3.5 trillion on top of the already agreed-upon bipartisan infrastructure bill.
I'm never bringing a bill to the floor that doesn't have the votes.
And rounding the corner on COVID.
But this might be the last major wave of infection.
All school-age children could soon be eligible for the vaccine.
All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
Democrats trying to pull off an ambitious political gambit. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup.
Good evening. I'm Jenna Browder. It's a high-stakes week on Capitol Hill for President Biden's agenda. Democrats desperate to unite progressives and moderates within their party around two pieces of legislation. The first, a $3.5 trillion tax and spending package, and the second, a $1 trillion infrastructure plan.
Lawmakers are also hoping to avert a government shutdown later this week and to raise the debt ceiling before the United States runs out of money to pay its bills. For more on where things stand, we now go to CBN News Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson. Abigail.
That's right, John. While many Republicans say they would support a continuing resolution that funds the government through December, they do not want to support one that includes that raise to the debt ceiling. They say if Democrats aren't asking for their support in bills like the $3.5 trillion spending package or the budget reconciliation package, they don't want to help them spend and borrow more money. But regardless, an optimistic President Biden said that he believes Democratic leadership will find a way to get all of this done this week.
Well, it may not be by the end of the week. I hope it's by the end of the week. But as long as we're still alive, we got three things to do: the debt ceiling, the continuing resolution, and the two pieces of legislation. If we do that, the country's going to be in great shape. Thank you.
Now, if the House and Senate don't pass a spending bill by September 30th, then we'll be headed toward seeing parts of the government shut down.
Abby, just how critical is this week to the president's legislative agenda and legacy?
Well, many would argue it is very critical, but as you heard in that clip from President Biden, he kind of gave himself an out by saying that it doesn't all actually have to be done this week. But if progressive and centrist Democrats aren't able to reach an agreement to get both the bills they're working on in the House passed this week, it's unclear when, if ever, they'll be able to reach a compromise and get those bills passed. So many would say it's a very critical week to getting President Biden's agenda across the finish line.
All right, Abigail Robertson for us on Capitol Hill, keeping an eye on everything happening up there. Thank you very much. And now to the battle over abortion and a number of divisive cases set to go before the U.S. Supreme Court this term. The most controversial may be the case over a Mississippi abortion law that could overturn Roe v. Wade.
That case is set to be argued at the High Court this December and follows a flurry of legislative efforts by states to both restrict or improve access to abortions. In the wake of Texas effectively banning abortions after 6 weeks, new legislation in California helps kids as young as 12 years old hide abortions from their parents. California Governor Gavin Newsom signed 2 abortion rights bills last week, making it easier for kids, teens, and young adults who are still on their parents' insurance plans to keep their medical information secret. Meanwhile, the Democrat-controlled House of Representatives, making moves to write abortion into U.S. law, passed the Women's Health Care Protection Act Friday by the slimmest of margins, just 7 votes.
Speaker Nancy Pelosi prominently backing the bill, which guarantees a woman's right to end her pregnancy. As Congress and the states send conflicting signals over abortion, the 9 Supreme Court justices who could decide the fate of Roe v. Wade face a plummeting approval rating and a presidential commission studying the makeup of the Marble Palace. And, John, this is an issue that has really both sides fired up, both Republicans and Democrats. And it's providing a lot of fuel and ammo to both of them.
That is right, and a very consequential Supreme Court term coming up.
All right, with that, I believe we have Congressman Chris Smith, Republican from New Jersey. Let's go ahead and bring him in. Congressman, it's great to see you. Thank you for joining us this evening. I want to start with some new polling out from Gallup. It shows the U.S. Supreme Court with a historically low approval rating following its decision to uphold the Texas law. The poll found only 40% approve of the court. That's down 9 points from July. Does this give Democrats more leverage in their effort to remake the court?
I would say absolutely not. The court, like Congress, sometimes gets very low ratings. I mean, we're probably at the bottom of the ratings chart as House and Senate. But the protection of unborn children from the violence of abortion, whether it be decapitation, dismemberment, chemical poisons, we need a national debate on abortion like we've never had. We have fought it on the issue of funding, and sadly the abortion president, Joe Biden, wants to fund abortion on demand. And the new bill that just passed, as you know, on Friday, is right up until birth, unfettered access to abortion, and all of the state laws, like women's right to know, parental consent, waiting periods, even laws against pain-capable unborn children to protect them. There's several of those laws. All of them would be eviscerated, would be overturned overnight. So this is the most extreme congressional bill ever.
Congressman Smith, it's great to see you. Along those same lines, what about the midterm elections? That same Gallup poll found an increasing number of Americans see the court as, quote, too conservative, maybe not to add to the argument of changing the makeup of the court, but could this maybe hurt Republicans in their goal to retake majorities in the 2022 midterm elections?
Well, traditionally, the party in power, the White House, have a hard time holding on to the midterms. We have many, many good candidates who are running across the country. We did far better than was predicted last time. We were supposed to lose the number of seats, and we're up to 212, so we are within striking distance, and it is 50-50 over on the Senate side. But I think people are growing increasingly fed up. The Rasmussen poll, which in my opinion is the best poll, I follow it every single day, been doing it since it began. I remember when Bush was running, the numbers that they come up with, particularly on the election, are usually right on. Well, they have Biden down at 40% positive, which is really at his lowest level. Other polls comport with that, but I think it's telling a story that this extremism that they have embraced, whether it be at the border, the exodus out of Afghanistan, which makes us less safe. Even Leon Panetta, Obama's former CIA and defense secretary, said that we're at greater risk now because of that botched exodus. And we left Americans behind. And that, to me, is one of the most unconscionable things. I've been in Congress 41 years. I never, ever, ever thought a president would leave Americans behind in a war area, in a contested area. And he did. And it was by design. So that is troubling beyond words. And I think the American people, I was out in my district over the weekend, again, like I always am, and the feedback is they're fed up with the extremism on the part of this administration. And Congress is going right along with it. Can you imagine $3.5 trillion for what? It's just, we're tinkering on bankruptcy. We don't have that kind of money, and the tax increases will depress economic growth, will lead to job losses throughout the country, in my state and elsewhere. So there's very serious issues that they are embracing with a bear hug, and it really is Bernie Sanders. This is his budget that we're voting on, and I will be voting no on that $3.5 trillion.
All right, Congressman Chris Smith of New Jersey. It's a big week for all of you up there. It's go time for sure. We appreciate you taking the time with us this evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, if Faith Nation is on your regular playlist, you'll probably recognize all the faces on your screen. These two guys in particular. Stick around for Faith Nation's political panel right after this.
To the southern border tonight and that makeshift camp under the bridge in Del Rio, Texas. Tonight, it sits empty. Thousands of migrants now deported back to Haiti or moved to other facilities. More than 17,000 migrants remain in the U.S., awaiting court dates to plead asylum. Today at the White House, Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas addressed images of border agents on horseback that seem to show the rough treatment of migrants.
The investigation into what occurred has not yet concluded. We know that those images painfully conjured up the worst elements of our nation's ongoing battle against systemic racism.
And here with us now for more is CBN Chief Political Analyst David Brody and Nathan Gonzalez, editor and publisher of Inside Elections. Gentlemen, welcome to you both. Let's just start with where Secretary Mayorkas left off. The Biden administration has been taking a lot of heat from both the right and on the left for the images coming out of Del Rio, including that video of agents on horseback chasing down migrants. Nathan, is the backlash warranted? And I guess even more specifically, how are we seeing this play out when it comes to the polls?
Yeah, well,
Welcome back. President Biden is getting a boost, but not necessarily in the polls. Mr. Biden received the Pfizer vaccine booster today. At 78, he belongs to a group of Americans eligible for the shot, including people over 65, adults with underlying health conditions like diabetes or obesity, and professionals like healthcare workers and teachers who are at an increased risk due to their jobs.
Boosters are important, but the most important thing we need to do is get more people vaccinated. The vast majority of Americans are doing the right thing.
Well, could the end of the pandemic be in sight? Former FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb believes it is.
Medical reporter Lori Johnson has more on that and his thoughts about the next pandemic.
About half of all U.S. children ages 12 and older have been vaccinated against COVID-19. Currently, the shots are not available for younger kids, but that's likely to change. Former FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb believes children 5 to 11 could be offered their shots between Halloween and Thanksgiving.
Now, the vaccine for kids aged 5 to 11 is basically the same formulation as the current vaccine, just in a lower dose.
An even lower dose will likely be offered to children ages 6 months to 4 early next year. When it comes to adults, Gottlieb says businesses should decide whether to require workers to get the jab, adding President Biden's vaccine mandate may not survive legal challenges.
A lot of businesses that were considering mandates now might wait because they're going to wait to see what the federal government does, and it's going to take the federal government months to implement this mandate if they're ever able to. And so you might have actually slowed down the rate of decision-making in the private community.
He says businesses could consider natural immunity in lieu of vaccines.
I think we need to recognize that people who have immunity that's acquired through infection, that immunity is durable and it appears quite robust. I think the question from a clinical standpoint is how long it's going to last.
When it comes to the pandemic, Dr. Gottlieb has reason to believe the infamous Delta surge will be the last one. Then COVID-19 in the U.S. would transition to an endemic, where the virus becomes a seasonal pattern like the flu.
I think that this might be the last major wave of infection. The idea that this is going to continue to mutate very quickly and all these mutations are going to evade our tools and this is sort of going to be an endless crisis, I just don't see that.
However, he says the U.S. must take action to stop the next pandemic, perhaps the bird flu, which could be right around the corner.
And I think that there are things we can do to prevent this kind of episode from ever happening again.
In his new book, Uncontrolled Spread, Dr. Gottlieb recommends fixing mistakes such as not being able to quickly deploy large-scale diagnostic testing, which could have identified asymptomatic
Finally tonight, a big American victory in men's professional golf. A dominating 19-9 win over Europe this weekend. The U.S. men's golf team reclaiming the Ryder Cup trophy for the first time since 2016.
Now, the United States only needed 3.5 points on Sunday to secure the cup, but they captured 8 of a possible 12 points to trounce Europe. The United States team captain described his youthful cohorts as part of a new era of golf, with a roster that included 8 players under 30 and 6 who are making their Ryder Cup debut. The youngest in the group, Colin Morikawa, went undefeated and secured the half point that sealed the team's victory Sunday afternoon and launched them into the spotlight. Jenna, you watched this game over the weekend.
I did. So my husband, he's a big golf fan, and he's gotten me into it and into watching it. And what's neat about this is that it's, golf is such an individual sport, and this is when they really all come together on a team. There's a ton of camaraderie, just team spirit that you don't normally see, and it's a very patriotic event.
One for the history books.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching.
Have a great night.